which is the age of household head, sex of household head, and the relationship to household head. So this is the household headship characteristics I'm talking about. And then the household characteristics itself, number of household members, person who decides on respondent's health. And then I also look at the socio-demographic characteristics along with all those other variables to determine contraception among adolescents in Nigeria. So the expected outcome, the output from the study will be that we elicit information regarding the level of contraceptive use among sexually active female adolescents in Nigeria. Also, I'll be able to identify key household factors that influence adolescent contraceptive use. And then the outcome, based on my findings, will be that it is intended to enhance our understanding of household contextual nuances impacting adolescent contraception. Thank you for listening.
We welcome comments from colleagues, from fellows.
She wants to talk.
Okay, thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I just want to ask, what's the difference between your objective 2 and objective 3?
Okay.
Please go to that slide. She's speaking my mind, so I may not probably ask that question.
Objective 2 and 3. Sorry? Oh, you are not using your glasses. Sorry. 2 and 3, right? Okay. Objective 2 talks about the influence of household headship, and I've itemized them in my method here. The household headship, I'm looking at age of head of that household, sex of head of household.
Is household headship not a subset of household?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not in this study. Household headship actually.
So what are
you
the
can,
household characteristics?
Yes. Household characteristics.
Now you are used to the DHL data.
Sir.
1, 2,
sir,
3, 4.
That's not how it works, sir. I could actually come up and say I want to use all the household characteristics there.
You have not listed any here. You just said number of household members. That's just one variable.
Household characteristics, key household I'm not going to use all variables, sir. And it's going to be subject to more review of literature where I will get more information regarding what exists and how it's being used. But I cannot just take all the household characteristics in the data set. I don't even have them offhand. But based on what I've seen so far, I think these are some of the key can be relatable to contraceptive use. When I was trying to build the argument, I said something about the fact that communication is one of the key concepts that we want to try to establish within the family, where whether it's the parents, whether it's the head of the household, whether it's the family member, they are able to talk regarding contraception among especially sexually active adolescents. So what's the driving factor there now is that we need to try to increase advocacy in that respect, but it has not been. And so the characteristics of whoever is leading the household, whether it's a male, a female, the age, whether it's old or young, however they are, how well will that inform how they interact with those adolescents to talk about sexual and reproductive health, and then inform their decision to use, even when maybe when they start or currently when they are using when they are having a sexual relationship. So that's the.
Sorry, this is a digression. In our culture, in our context, do you think that a parent or whoever is heading the household will approve contraceptive use for their children?
That is part of where I'm coming from. that it's a taboo. If you ever say something like that, that we regard it as a taboo to have that conversation. But there is a lot of advocacy going on. We have people who actually speak on TV, women, about how they talk to their children. Those who are not even about not you to use it now. No, of course, it's not about
sexual education.
Of course, sexual and reproductive health conversation. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
But do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can't get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you saying that these questions were asked from the parents?
Which question?
As in the question around this sexual practices?
No.
And the likes.
No.
I can't link the response of the household, whatever.
No.
The outside.
It is, we have, like we have in proximate determinants of contraception, of contraceptive use. We have intermediates. And so, in this case, the more a head of the household or a family member is close to their child or there is likelihood of increasing that conversation and that conversation happening. I'm not saying, I am exactly saying.
I actually say that if the household head is a male, there is a chance that the child will delay sexual degree.
That is part of.
If you are close to your child as a male, if the father is close to the child, there is a chance that that child will not even initiate sex acts in adolescence.
There is also a chance that the child can initiate it.
The chance that the child will not initiate is quite high.
What about if it is a girl? What about if it is a...
Both ways. That's even where it is even more important. It's a protective factor for sexual initiation.
So it is not proximate. That's what I'm saying. It's not that question you are raising is not a proximate question, but we are looking at whether there is a connection. Do you understand what I'm saying? Whether there is a connection between the characteristics of that household head, But we have not. I personally, to the best of my knowledge, because I searched a couple of databases and I didn't see where this was connected. So in a way, I have a feeling that I might probably be filling a gap. Which question itself?
The questions are not asked whether the kind of setting you find yourself affects your sexual practices or the kind of parent you have, whether it affects your choices or whether you are using family planning or not. I think again, just like at the Nigerian level, to see whether this will likely affect.
No, not necessarily.
But I don't think there are questions that you can link directly with the household heads and the practice of
household headship. And yes,
there are questions that
household headship characteristics. If I talk about whether it's a polygamous family now, for instance, some have argued that children who come from polygamous family are most likely to end up. Can you say we are establishing a direct connection between that? It's not. So that's what I'm trying to say. That this is a kind of a distant connection, however, being silent on the proximate aspect of it will be the conversation itself. Like, do you have this conversation with these characteristics of the head of your family? No. I don't understand.
You are thinking loud and you are trying to link the data. Who is asking that question like that?
That particular question, that question itself. Okay, let me break this down. To determine whether there will be a conversation between a family member and the child or whoever, what's that? There will be a conversation regarding contraception between a head of a household or whoever is the caregiver and the child or whoever the relative is a function of communication, right?
It could be.
It could be. No, we are trying to establish a connection between them. If there's no conversation, that means there's no connection between how they talk about.
There may not be conversation. There may not be. Statutorily, they just discover that my father is very strict.
Your father is one?
He's a very stern person. He's a very strict person.
And
he has never talked about it, but I know him that he's a very strict person. So I already have a gap that we do this.
But as you have that, you could also have the other way.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. Whether you disagree with what I'm saying or not, I'm trying to see whether there is a connection between the characteristics of a household caregiver, the head of the household, and how it informs the contraception or decision to take contraceptive or by whoever is receiving the care under the house. That's what I'm saying. No, I'm talking based on the question that was raised here.
It's as if you are adding more to the data you already have. As if you are going out like a primary to collect primary data and you want to ask some further questions.
Did I do that?
That's the way people get to use.
I think what you're trying to do is that household headship as a variable.
Yes.
You are going to make it create a composite score from all these other.
I could do that,
or use that,
or use those individual characteristics.
Okay.
How they
household headship, sex.
Yes, exactly. And that age, I'm going to look at it in terms of whether they are young, the head of the household is young or is an old person, and how, that could also have a implication on the kind of response you get from whoever is receiving care. A relationship to household head. Yes, there is. There is the statement whether it's the daughter, or whether it's the niece, whether it's the granddaughter, and all of that.
Okay, so if that informs contraceptive.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting.
Well done.
Thank you.
Your analysis.
Yes, sir.
It's not detailed enough for a statistician. Go there. Tell me what you want to do.
Sir, but
what do you we value this. We are going to do more than this binary logistics. You must take into account the nature of that data.
Yes, I think you mentioned it yesterday, and I'm already working on it actually.
So I wanted you to indicate that you will do a multi-level. That's the only way you can, account for that design of the NDHS. You will always have intra-cluster variations. That's the honest truth. If you don't do a straightforward binary logistic regression, it will not, is it sale they say now? Sale, Abi? Sale through or something. Except we are not going to the good journals.
No, we are going to good journals, sir.
Okay, all right.
Like we're already having that conversation.
Prof, sir. Yes, sir.
Can we go back to your topic? Why is it that everybody keeps concentrating on female ability? Kí our boys?
I think they don't.
Founders are interested in females. Yes. So you pay the boy child. You're one of them. We have to talk as only boy.
I think the.
Okay. Maybe as a further studies on your own, you may have to also think of a comparative studies about what happens among males, what happens among female adolescents.
Okay.
Next slide. this, right?
Yes, sir.
Problem and background.
Yes, sir.
Where is actually the problem? I've seen background.
That's why I keep keeping this thing very fast. Anyway, the challenge is that, the problem is that there is a high level of adolescent pregnancies in the country, and the effort to addressing it is not forthcoming because those people are lacking in terms of access and use of contraceptives.
So when we talk about accessibility, are we saying because of their age group, they don't have access? Or are we saying the contraceptives are not in the reach?
Well, sir, my focus is not actually on access. I just put that there just to emphasize the fact that if they don't have access, they cannot use. And if they have access, they can use. However, one of the things that influence access is whether they have the resources, first and foremost, and that could be facilitated by how well they have access at the household level.
So the last bullet is where the problem is, right?
The last bullet, that's trying to explain from the household perspective.
Please get me convinced about the problem here. What is the problem? How do you bring out the problem? Yeah, why do you want to study this study? What's the problem? If you say access is not part of really what you want to study for that age group, okay? But going by the topic, it has to do with household head. Household head and household head characteristics.
Yes.
Right? As it concerns adolescents, female
adolescents, yes.
What is the problem? Because at some point I wanted to say, will we be interested in getting the age difference as the gap between the head of household and the adolescents as a problem? Okay? You know, yesterday I was talking about if you are going to make use of household data, what are the variables in that particular data that can, because definitely in that household data, there should be a relationship between each person in the household with the household head.
I have it.
You have that one.
Yes.
So definitely the adolescents in that same household, we have one relationship or the other to the household head, not necessarily biological relationship. Okay? So that's why I want to get out what is the problem here.
That is the aspect of household characteristics.
Beautiful. What about household characteristics?
Yes.
Take for example, if the girl is from a polygamous setting, what is the problem there? Will we be able to say, we are very young, or something like that? I just want a clear cut problem statement.
Okay.
You are hiding under these bullets.
Like I said earlier, the idea is that the problem specifically is about high level of adolescent pregnancies in Nigeria.
Beautiful. In spite of what?
Despite the numerous advocacies and interventions to increase their access and use of contraceptives.
We are going back to the third bullet. Oh, Sylvester, the access.
No, actually, sir, I can do access too, but my focus is on the actual use. I can also have other intermediate things that I could look at.
You will use what you have access to.
And the data I have
Is what?
is whether they use or they are not using.
Okay, so, all right, okay. So, try and reframe that thing and let's have something catchy. Next slide. Yes, sir. Please. From him, from you, sir.
Based on the discussion, I want to confirm in the progress statement we focused on the dependent variable and independent variable.
Good question. It should be more on the independent variable.
Independent.
Yes. Of course, you cannot do away with the dependent variable because that is our outcome. But what are the factors responsible for that outcome? The outcome is a problem. Why are we still having the outcome in spite of what has been put in place in form of intervention? Okay? Is it the output now? Is it the socio-demographic? Is it those factors, okay, that is still problematic to that world? What is in the literature about those factors? Why are we having it now as a problem in our own climate? Are you getting it? Why is the problem still existing? Okay, is it that we don't have enough? Take for example NOA, orientation agency. There are series of ICTs being produced. Information communication and
surveillance system. Ṣé ti tàn báyìí?
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Ti tàn. So should I allow that to go? And good afternoon, my fellow colleagues. So I'll be presenting a form of improvement on my work from yesterday's presentation. So my proposed title is Gender Comparison and Determinant of Information, Communication and Technology, ICT Skills Among Youth in Nigeria. So yesterday, I didn't put gender comparison there, so I looked at that and I felt it's worth adding. Then I'll be sticking to ICT skill and not use. Because when I look at the literature, I found out that there's a part from the table that I looked at, the MICS table, found out that there's a part that looked at ICT use, and there was another portion that looked at ICT skills. And I feel the use from the table, it's more about the use of cellular phones, minimal things that almost everybody does. So I think most of the information I'm going by is more towards the skill. So the problem statement, youth cannot maximize their full potential in a highly competitive world without being marginalized if they lack competence with ICT skill. But despite this, several interventions have been done by the government and various stakeholders. But in spite of this, we have a lot of lag in developing countries when it comes to ICT skills, and Nigeria is not excluded. The justification for this study, looking at the studies that have been done so far, of which Prof called my attention to a lot yesterday, I looked at the available literature, and I could see that most of the things that were done in ICT were majorly done within educational sector, especially in universities and some NYSC camp, some among SS3 students. And at that level, you expect them to have access and some form of high proportion of them using that. So essentially, the result we have from there cannot be generalized to what is happening within the country as a whole. And findings from that cannot be generalized to the country as a whole, hence the need for an analysis of a national survey data to determine the proportion of youth with ICT skill and possible factors that could predict such skill. My research question, number one, I want to find out if gender gap exists in ICT skill among youth in Nigeria. Number two, to find out what are the factors that determine ICT skill among youth by gender in Nigeria. And my objective, number one, is to determine the proportion of youth that has ICT skill by gender in Nigeria. And the second one is to determine the factors that influence ICT skill among youth by gender. I'll be using multiple indicator cluster survey data sets. I hope I will still have that, because what I have, I was told that possibly I downloaded what I should not. I requested for a wrong thing. So I hope I will have it. So far so good. I looked at the table. properly yesterday to look at what are the questions that were captured to get ICT skill. And I discovered that they had about 9 questions that speak to this. And from that table, they only requested if the youth has used any of these 9, and if you have used at least one of the 9 within the last 3 months, you are categorized to have ICT skill. But looking at some paper, I just discovered today that a systematic review classified them as basic skill, standard, and advanced skill. The last one, the writing of computer program, was the only one under the advanced, while the other 4, the first 4 is under basic, the second 4 under basic. So I've not explored that very well to see the perspective the writer was looking at it. But from the data set, from the table, if you used one in the last 3 months, you are assumed to have ICT skill. So I'll possibly look at that. So once I finalize that, I'll be able to know whether I'm going to use a composite score or I will stay with use of at least one of these things in the last 3 months. So I'll be having them into 2 categories. Those that have the skill present and those that do not have as absent. So my independent variable will be mainly the socio-demographic characteristics. Then my sample will be 15 to 24. So I can have something that is at least comparative to other countries. Another thing I discovered is that, and I'm still searching why, this few systematic review that I've seen did not include Nigeria. Even the one that were done looking at low and mid-income countries. They put together a lot of MICS data, but even in the African country, we have countries like Sierra Leone, almost every other person, but Nigeria is not there. I don't know exactly what could have been responsible for that. Because from that, I was thinking if that has been done, we may be able to see the pattern, even if it's just pulling them together. But I've not seen any that looked at the Nigeria data set. So I'll be doing a univariable analysis to see what is the proportion, especially by gender. Then I'll look at the bivariable analysis to look at how the users and the possessor of the skill and people that do not have the skill, how they relate with the social demographics. Then if I find factors that are significant enough, then I'll probably run like a binary logistic regression to see the predictors. So thank you very much for listening. Then I don't know, one more thing. I'm thinking, because yesterday when I saw the gender part of it, I wasn't thinking of including it, but from the advice I feel it will be fine. But when I looked at literature that I've seen, I'm seeing a lot of complex review of ICT use, which is far beyond what this is speaking to. And I'm saying that even from the meta-analysis of the countries, there were no differences in the gender from some of the reviews that were presented. I think some were actually saying that maybe the gender gap is actually closing gradually because some attention has been given to that. Or maybe there were some things that were responsible for non-significance in the gap. So I don't know whether currently now, whether putting in gender comparison now, I will not be speaking to something that has been like an outdated thing. So I don't know how to go about that, because the trend of what I'm seeing with the current thinking is not talking about gender divide. Although they are saying digital divide is still existing, but I think at different level, not just at the gender level again.
Meta-analysis, where were they done?
The ones that were done.
Any in Sub-Saharan Africa?
Yes, I saw 2 actually. Prof showed me one yesterday, and I could only see one study there included from South Africa. Even from the African countries, the first one I saw, mainly.
The first one.
Yes.
Was it global?
It's global. It's global. Mainly about 50% from Europe.
So there is still a gap. You may not have African data for that. If it's only South Africa that is relevant.
That's the first one. The second one that I saw today actually has about even 9 African countries. and Nigeria is not there, even sub-Saharan Africa. So I don't know why we are. Yes, so it's not.
Sub-Sahara is not well captured.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Questions? Okay, let's start for that. All right.
The last comment you made was just to put a caveat on the inclusion of gender, right?
Yes, I am just thinking that if I'm doing this now and I'm putting gender conspicuously in my title, am I not going to be seen as being far behind in the trend of what people are talking about?
In essence, you are saying you have not extensively studied literature.
I'm not saying that.
So, because if you have studied literature, you should be able to confidently say, so far,
I'm still
there's nothing on this and that. So, if you are saying you don't know if you will be far,
what I'm saying is this. Looking at Nigerian context, I'm not even seeing ICT on its own and youth generally. I'm only seeing them in different fields. They implement something in agriculture, they are looking at the effects. In education, they are teachings, they are looking at the effects. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not even seeing anything gender at all, even in Nigerian perspective. But looking further, I see that it's like they are moving beyond the gender and they are discarding it.
This is where the issue is.
All right.
What is the problem you have seen? Is it the global thing? Is it the Nigerian thing? You know, so you come ask your problem statement.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Am I clear about that?
Yes, yes.
So, and that for you in this country is still a problem.
Okay.
So you are beginning to, you know, that's important.
Yes.
Is that problem that you identify that is determining that? And then interestingly, you've also seen that in sub-Saharan Africa, that's all. You have enough to build on.
Okay, over time.
Over time. Okay. As against, you can't just say Europe, and you present that, you compare and say, look, you can, like Prof said in the morning, you can almost be able to write your discussion from some of these things in your mind. Because you are beginning to see gaps that you can say, oh, this is what is happening. This is why the situation is so in Europe. This is why it's so in Nigeria and other sub-Saharan African countries. Huh?
Yes,
so
thank you.
We live as an city, so don't remove gender. When you explore more,
Actually, what informed my thought about gender initially was that looking at the tables on the face level, face value, there's a very big gap between the male table and the female table. When you look at the proportion, the percentage that we're using, there were tables from MICS reports. They have tables too. They have tables for male, high CTUs, tables for female, states, different states, and you could see like 10% difference even in some states.
They did not specifically speak to that.
They didn't speak to that. They presented it on table. But I've not run to see the statistical, you know, is a whole lot of the old male, the old female per state.
The second question, I wasn't sure whether they mirror
each other.
I don't know. The question and the agency. Because I thought something.
Objective 1, to determine the proportion of youths that has ICT skill by gender. But the question was to know, does gender gap exist in ICT skill?
Well done, Dr. Daly.
Thank you, sir.
I think as that contribution has been very useful. It's made a few things. I stepped out. What's the operational? Sorry, the MICS is pronounced as mixed, standard though. So that if you are presenting somewhere,
mix. All right. All right. Okay, this skill.
This skill, yes.
Okay. I was saying that from the table, what I saw is that each of these questions under dependent variable, the question I listed, they have 9 questions. And they asked each of the questions they were asking, did you use this in the last 3 months? If it's yes, for at least one, they categorize you to have ICT skill. But when I look at the systematic review, I saw that some people classified the first 4 as basic skills, the next 4 as standard, while the last one, programming, as advanced skill. But I've not seen any other, so I don't know what the schedule.
What's the plan?
So until when I see the data set, and I also look at, I've not seen the data set itself, I looked at the table. Then if I also see the literature, other things, the way they look at, it will determine which perspective I want to, whether I want to do a composite or I want to study. Thank you.
Sorry, sir.
Are you programming, David?
No, if for instance, you do a composite, because it's been difficult, or of course it's possible, to pick each one of them and use them yes or no across is possible. But to use a composite to measure skill as one variable, that would make a lot of sense. And it's about how you are operationalizing it. As okay, this is how you measured your dependent variable. But what I'm looking at is to say those who have, for instance, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of them. So if yes is coded 1 and 0 for no, you have maximum of 9 and then you have minimum of 0. So if somebody scores 1 and then somebody scores 9, you want to say they have the same level of skill. That would be, there's a kind of diagram.
From the table, that's the way they put it. Except I look at.
The aspect maybe you should build on to say, okay, you could also measure and put it in a kind of, maybe even 3 categories. Those who don't have at all, those who have between this and this, and so you have 3 levels, you can still, give a better idea of the level of
but I have a question with that.
This, your suggestion, is if you say, what are you going to use as reference? If you have 1 to 3, then if you have 4 to 5, I don't know, that's what you are suggesting. Okay, if you use like 4 3, you might say medium skill. Is that what you mean? If you use like
4 to 6 or something,
6, and then if you
7
use
to 9,
high skill and all that. Okay.
But my own challenge will be, my challenge about that will now be, how do I compare my results with other results who have used just at least one that mix is using?
But your comparison will not be based on whether they fall in this category, because at the end of the day, we're telling you, okay, more